Sorcerer tries to put a rune on Zan's hand, but a lot of blood appears in the scene. So he ends up waking up from his nightmare, and the next day Nephi prepares breakfast for his master. Whereupon he asks if he has been waiting for him to wake up this whole time, and Nephi explains that he was just staring at him. And then he gets up and finally manages to do a decent greeting to her, and upon arriving at the cafeteria, Zan is surprised by how organized Nephi left the place. And in addition, he notices that the girl prepared him a beautiful meal, and upon hearing these compliments, she starts to wag her ears, indicating that she is happy with his words. And when he sits down at the table, Zan asks the two of them to eat together. But Nephi explains that she only prepared enough for him to eat alone. He asks if she was going to skip breakfast, and the girl says she just forgot to prepare her part, and then Zan suggests that they share the food. But Nephi reminds him that she only prepared a chair at the table, so he gives the idea for her to sit on his lap. But as soon as he says this, he notices that he said something very suggestive, and Nephi in turn states that I would never do something so rude. However, Zane remains firm in his idea and says that she can sit on his leg, but internally he feels again badly and believes that he shouldn't be insisting so much. But Nephi obeys him and sits on his lap, and then Zan sends her be careful not to forget to make your food next time, and during the meal she tries to serve the food in his mouth, and Zan notices that both soup and the weather there are good hot and days after that. Nephi, her master, studying something, and then she shows interest in what he is doing. Studying, and Zan states that he is reading a witchcraft book. As usual, and upon hearing this, Nephi says she doesn't understand exactly what those drawings mean, as she is not capable of using magic. At this, Zan is confused. After all, the girl has a much higher quality of mana than average. And to explain what functioning of magic, Zan explains that each of those symbols exert certain powers, and as these designs are very mysterious, there is debate as to whether they represent the language of the gods or be the emblem of a PCT with the demons. Having said that, he makes a basic sorcery. Drawing called a magic circle, in this figure in question is responsible for creating lightning and by channeling mana to the image of the circle. Zen is able to create a weak beam and to further increase the power of this magic. They need to add more symbols. So he does this test in practice, and a larger radius takes over the magic circle, and so Zan explains that the circle is necessary. Otherwise, other magicians can take your magic, and in the middle of the explanation, Nephi notes that he only added symbols to the outside of the circle, and then she asks if it's also you can do this on the inside of the circle. And upon hearing this very pertinent question, Zan gives him a vague answer. After all, doing this is almost impossible, as it requires a magic circle to be made within an already completed one. And in doing so, the flow of mana is interrupted, making cause spells to malfunction and go out of control. However, if you're able to manage your mana flow, this is something that can be done. And then Nephi notes that it is possible to replace someone else's sorcery, and Zan compliments her deduction, saying that this wizard in question would be safe from any witchcraft after all. People like this are capable of feeding on all types of magical attacks. In other words, this would be the most powerful sorcerer of all time. However, Zan makes it clear that this is just a theory. After all, if it were so easy to do this, all magicians would already have achieved such a feat, and what's more, no one studies this phenomenon with genuine seriousness. So Nephi claims that he has already been able to understand a little about the theory of witchcraft. And then she asks if she is able to use it now in this. Zan confirms that yes, because understanding sorcery has a direct correlation with power. And that is precisely why wizards set up tricks and traps so that this knowledge is never stolen. And then he tells her to be careful when touching anything in that room, at which point the girl starts to worry. But Zan says he was just playing with her, as he has already changed all the traps to prevent her from triggering them accidentally. But when he takes a better look at her, he notices that the girl seems to have enjoyed that conversation about magic because her ears, they are swaying non-stop, in which she states that this is the first time he has spoken to her so much, and Zan in turn explains that witchcraft is his specialty, so it's natural that he doesn't stop talking when the subject comes to that. In this, the girl asks what his objective is using these incredible powers, and upon hearing this question, Zan is left speechless answer, as he has never thought about it before. And then he deduces that he uses magic only to survive, as when, and he it was small, Zan had no money or anywhere to live, and because of that, he ended up stealing to survive. But on a certain day, he was captured by a sorcerer who wanted to use him as part of a sacrifice. But he was managed to turn the tide in his favor before being killed. But still, it served to show him that he must get stronger. Otherwise, he might end up dead in the process next. And although he finds this objective somewhat banal, Zane states that this is his real motivation for studying magic, and your ultimate goal is to achieve immortality. And in the middle of the conversation, Zan feels the presence of certain people in his castle, and then he asks Nephi to prepare dinner. While he receives them, she asks how many people there will be, and Zan tells her to prepare food just for the two of them. After all, these travelers will be leaving soon, and meanwhile, the guards outside report that the person responsible for the recent kidnappings is hiding near the place they are. But as they walk, the more they feel lost, and so the girl deduces that there is a barrier, protective witchcraft, in place which prevents them from advancing. Then she draws her sword and cuts the barrier, and then Zen goes to the front of the castle to welcome them, and when analyzing how that sword broke his barrier, Zane deduces that this is one of the 12 sacred blades which say having killed the Lord of Demons. Therefore, this object symbolizes the strength of the church, and seeing a young woman wielding this sword leaves you a little intrigued. Then he notices the girl better and remembers that he already let her escape safely once, because he didn't know that she was actually an angelic knight. And so he tries to end the fight as quickly as possible, as he has more important things to do. But when attacking the girl with his thunder magic, one of the tanks protects her with his shield, and Zan notices that that shield anointed in fact has an impressive resistance, and as for the guards, they decide to leave the rest of the fight in the hands of the Celestial Knights. In this case, the tank tries to attack the sorcerer, but Zane easily defeats him with just one blow. And then another knight tries to attack him. But again he is thrown to the ground, and Zan tells Chastity to stay where she is, because if she sees upwards, he can crush the knight's head in the blink of an eye. And upon hearing this, the girl misinterprets him, and then Zan states that he has no interest in killing in them, because if they survive, they will be able to tell the terror they went through fighting the sorcerer, Zen, and spreading fear to everyone. He will be even more respected, and furthermore, he believes that starting to pile bodies around the house would scare Nephi, in which Chastity notes that he doesn't. He is willing to kill the hostage and states that he will follow his commander's orders, killing the sorcerer Zan, and then she destroys his magic circle with her sword. But Zan notices that she is supporting herself almost 100 only in the blessing of your sword. After all, it doesn't have that much strength. And then he just continues to retaliate the attack and explains that he can't hit women so easily, especially if they appear to be the same age as Nephi. And upon hearing this, Chazel doesn't understand anything and asks why a guy like he soiled his hands with sorcery, and Zan responds that sorcery is not a crime, but she states that the existence of sorcery in itself is evil. After all, she makes people oppressed in this. He reminds her that she also has an oppressive power on her side, that she uses it to subdue sorcerers weaker than her, and when refuted, Chastity decides to just attack again. And then Zan continues his explanation and informs that there are many people who use magic just to survive. And since Chazel and the church are always after these sorcerers, he claims that she has no morals to talk about justice, and suddenly she manages to throw him away with her sword for the first time, and then Zan notices that the girl was just holding back this whole time. So he decides that he will have to kill her, but before to put this plan into action, Chastity asks him to pretend that Zan was killed by her, as this will make the church stop chasing him. But beyond that, she suggests that he give up magic and start living like an ordinary person. But upon hearing this, Zan is left without believe him. And then Chazel explains that he saw a look of compassion in him while Zan fought with his knights, and besides, she wants to make it up to him for saving her the other day. In this, Zan explains that an angelic knight can never be on the side of a sorcerer, as this is a serious crime. Therefore, Chastel is risking a lot by making him this offer. However, he feels that the right thing to do is to refuse, because if he runs away, this means that Nephi will be attacked. And speaking of the girl, She leaves the castle, and then one of the knights notices the sorcerer's ally and decides to attack her. But Zan enters in the middle of the blow, being hit instead of her, and upon seeing his master injured, Nephi gets angry and uses a spell to trap the knight with the roots of the surrounding trees. Then Zan stops her from killing the guy, saying that she has already done enough, and when faced with such power from the girl, the angelic knights simply flee. And as for Nephi, Zan remembers that she had said she was incapable of using sorcery. But she claims that what she used was not sorcery. And then he says, not caring about the power she uses, as he is satisfied with Nephi, the way she is, and when they talk a little more about her power, Zan states that he had never seen it before. So he was just curious about this power. And then the girl informs that this power is known as mysticism. And upon hearing this, Zane notices that she is talking about a power different from witchcraft, as mysticism is a miraculous power that can arise when a person wants it. In this, Nephi explains that she can only use this power. She is a cursed child, and because of this, she rejects this power skill and continuing further. In her story, the girl tells about the day her village was attacked, and then the villagers asked her to protect them using her magic. But when she felt pressured, she ended stuck and couldn't help anyone. And then the invaders managed to capture her. Already the rest of the village, they chose to flee the scene. But many of them ended up dead, and although the story is sad, Nephi believed that they got what they deserved. After all, everyone in the village always treats her badly because of your curse. But when she thought about the matter with a cool head, she realized that she ended up feeling the wrong emotions towards this fact. And so because of this, she began to suppress her emotions. Nephi apologizes to Zan, as she believes he was disappointed to hear these things from her. However, he claims that he would have killed both the invaders and the villagers, but she still feels bad and believes that he cannot be forgiven for what he did. And then Zen reminds her that the people in the village are dead, so she doesn't need to worry about anyone's forgiveness more. And in addition, he encourages her to seek more power. After all, this will not make her a bad person, and in any case, he has also been called evil many times in this. He remembers when he saved a woman from an attack by bandits and advised the girl to be stronger so that she could better guarantee her survival. But upon hearing this, the girl simply stamped her foot, saying that weak people also have the right to live. And then Zan notices that this girl possibly grew up very spoiled and had access to everything. And because of that, she ended up becoming weak, as she didn't need to use strength for anything. And unlike her, Zan decided to seek strength at all costs. But just like the girl said, he really didn't achieve anything with strength alone. Having said all that, he goes to Nephi and says he needs her. And then the girl starts crying with emotion, and what a beautiful thing. The third episode, him saying that he can't live without her anymore. Dude, this is absolute cinema. Dude, very good, really good, and I hope there's a part 4 and that it continues to get better, and even better, leave a like if subscribe, comment below part 4, so I can continue bringing more and more of this video here on the channel. So guys, let's go, and I'll see you in the next video I went.